What's going on, everybody? It's your boy JP, back with another video, and today I got the Huawei Mate 20. And man, it was a crazy road to get to this phone. And as many of y'all know, a little over a week ago, I had gotten my hands on the Razer Phone 2, and it was a disaster, at least on AT&T. And of course, I heard even worse stories on Verizon. So I quickly took the phone back. I should have stuck with the original phone that I ordered before the Razer Phone 2, and that was the Asus ROG phone. So, a lot of my friends were wondering, was I going to go back and get the ROG phone after taking the Razer Phone 2 back? Well, you had the OnePlus 6T around the corner coming out, so I really kind of wanted to wait out for that. But at the same time, I had the original OnePlus 6. The 6T was going to be a lot like the 6 that was already out. Of course, I do like the in-display fingerprint sensor. I do like the teardrop notch. But overall, it was going to be the same experience as the 6. Snapdragon 845 is definitely wearing thin. The OnePlus phones, though, always seem to score the best benchmarks with among all of the other phones that use the same chipset. It probably would be the best Snapdragon 845 device to have, not just because of the price, but because, even though the 845 is becoming a year old pretty soon, OnePlus is able to still, months and months later, they're still able to kind of bring new life to the chipsets. They're able to get, the most power out of it, more power than your other phones with the same chipset could, even the one they had before it, They did it last year with the OnePlus 5T, with the Snapdragon 835. It was the highest performing 835 device out. This year, the only reason the OnePlus 6T is only the second highest performing Snapdragon 845 chipset is because Asus went with a speed bind Snapdragon 845 for the ROG phone. Theirs is clocked at 2.96 gigs, whereas opposed everyone else, including the OnePlus 6T, is clocked at 2.8 gigs. And the fact that the Razer Phone 2 didn't even do the speed binding that the ROG phone did was also kind of a disappointment to me as well. But definitely wasn't the reason why I took it back, because it did have a lot of things going for it. But at the end of the day, I kind of gave the whole gaming phone type thing up, whether it was the ROG phone or the Razer Phone 2 or whatnot. I did give the OnePlus 6T a huge consideration. I do love OnePlus's products. The 6T is probably one of the very few OnePlus devices that I'm skipping. I was just too impressed with the Mate 20 series. I went with the regular Mate 20 because it's significantly cheaper than the Mate 20 Pro. I actually originally ordered the Mate 20X, kind of going along with the whole gaming phone thing. But the seller had contacted me literally within hours, very good seller that I bought from before off of eBay, to tell me that the expected ship date for the X was pushed back. And would I like to, to spend a little bit more for the Pro, or would I like to get a little bit of a refund and get the regular Mate 20? I went with getting a little bit of a refund for the Mate 20. I did get a iPhone XR just before I got this, so and I'm also looking for a new smartwatch. So it was definitely in my best interest there, I thought, to get a little money back. The differences between the regular 20 and the Pro, to me, it really makes the Mate 20 the best deal. I spent $730 on this, and you can actually get it for $700 now from the same seller that I bought from, Never MSRP, off of eBay. Again, who I bought from many times before. They ship out of Houston. It takes no time for me to get it here in Shreveport. I don't even know why. I don't even know why I even select overnight shipping. But anyway, this phone is hot, gorgeous. Just check it out. Check out that screen. It is a 6.5 inch LTPS, IPS LCD screen. It is Full HD Plus. It has the small teardrop notch. Some people call it the water drop notch or the dewdrop notch. Huawei actually calls it the dewdrop on the website. And look how thin that chin is. This is an LCD. Look how thin that chin is. Look how thin the bezels are. Apple, liquid retina, take note. Gorgeous. Absolutely gorgeous. It is stunning. I'm going to get to the rear of that phone in a second here. You got your USB Type-C, your AirPod style headphones. That is your 22.5 watt supercharger. Extremely quick. You get a TPU case. And of course, your booklet, your SIM ejector tool. The usual. Stuff that we're never going to read. Let me go to the back of this phone right quick. This phone has the square setup, the triple Leica cameras, the flash. This does have the physical fingerprint sensor, not the in-display one. This is, I think they call it the midnight blue, I think. I'm trying to turn this around so you can let that light catch it. What is so nice about this back? I mean, y'all hear that? It's glass, but it has a texture to it. It is an odd texture that really can't be explained unless you actually handle it yourself. I can't even get the texture on the camera hardly. It is really, it's really hard to get it on camera. Honestly, this phone is more slippery with the TPU case on than without. It is the best feeling I've ever had on a glass phone. I mean, it just doesn't slip out of your hand. It's amazing. But it's still glass. It's still elegant looking. I mean, you don't really even see the pattern unless you're just on top of it really trying to look for it. I mean, it is just, man. Oh, man. Ladies, y'all know the drill. I'm sorry, Flossie, I had to use that. But this thing, it is just, man, it just feels some type of way when it's in your hand. It really does. If you read the specs about the back of the phone, too, on Huawei's website, it's kind of, this camera really doesn't do it any justice again, because it is also, again, you can't really tell. My hands might be dirty as well. I do wash my hands, but, you know, I am human. But my hands may be greasy here, but this coating that this phone has, this texture, this pattern, it's also anti-fingerprint. And again, I know you see some smudges on it through the camera here. It doesn't do it any justice. It doesn't do the pattern any justice, nor the anti-fingerprint, but it really is anti-fingerprint. It does not look that bad, I promise you, when you're actually handling it yourself live without looking through a camera. I mean, it still attracts some fingerprints. Again, especially if your hands are greasy, like obviously mine are. I mean, if it wasn't for that, you probably wouldn't even see that on there, even through the camera. I mean, it just really just doesn't do it any justice. I hate even looking at it through the camera lens like that, because it's just non-existent when you're really just handling it yourself. I mean, it is a beautiful phone. Beautiful phone. Now, I know between the Mate 20 and the Mate 20 Pro, there is differences in the Leica camera setups. A lot of people know me for my knowledge of specs. Camera specs aren't one of my high. Camera specs are one of my weaknesses, I should say. But you know, all I know is that it takes phenomenal shots. I haven't really even put it through its paces. A friend of mine who I sold my P20 Pro to in Georgia was very interested to see shots taken on this phone to see how much better they are to the P20 I sold him, the P20 Pro. And I told him the same thing. I haven't even gotten a chance to take it through its paces. I got this phone on Thursday. I worked an extra day over the weekend that I don't normally work, so I have been busy. Again, as I've said many times, I don't even do a video on every phone that I get. But something like the Mate 20, you got to do a video on, especially when everyone else is doing a video on the Mate 20 Pro and not the regular Mate 20. You know, there was a lot of big differences between the P20 and the P20 Pro, but that gap is a lot slimmer when comparing the Mate 20 to the Mate 20 Pro. And given I'm not saying the Mate 20 Pro isn't worth its price tag. I mean, it's the typical price that your flagships are going for now, like your iPhone XS, your Galaxy Note 9. I mean, even your Asus ROG phone is $900. You know, your Razer Phone 2 is $800. You know, your LG V40 is $900. So I mean, you know, the Mate 20 Pro does cost about $1,000, at least to import here in the U.S. anyway. It is, and that's in line with other flagships. And honestly, if you're comparing it to those other $1,000 flagships, the Mate 20 Pro is the better option. I mean, it has the next generation chipset. You know, and really the Mate 20 is kind of like getting the iPhone XR as opposed to the XS or XS Max. Honestly, the XR to me is more comparable to the XS Max because it's bigger than the XS. And a lot of people are not going to notice the difference between the OLED and the LCD because Apple did do a good job calibrating the LCD on the XR. The bezels are, you know, they are smaller than you know, competing Android phones, but not this phone. Again, that's why I said Apple take note, because the bezels on this phone with an LCD are ridiculously thin, including that chin. It is beautiful. But the Mate 20 is kind of like buying the XR. You get the next generation power pack 7nm chipset for a lot less than its siblings. The Mate 20X, it's priced between the Mate 20 and the Mate 20 Pro. It does have a lot of things going for it. It is 1080 like this one, but it's OLED like the Pro. But the Pro is Quad HD, so there is still a lot of differences. The X does have the physical fingerprint sensor in the rear, the dewdrop notch, just like this phone. They look very similar, minus the screen size. Because the X has a 7.2 inch versus the 6.5 here on the regular Mate 20. But you're still going from an LCD to an OLED, you know, and whatnot. I guess the reason for the Pro still being higher than the X is because you get the true 3D depth sensing facial recognition. That's why it has the wider notch than the 2, and it also has the in-display fingerprint sensor. The Mate 20 here, as well as the X, have the dewdrop notch, which does have facial recognition, but it's facial recognition that is more akin to the OnePlus 6, OnePlus 6T. And of course, the 6T would be the better example because it uses the dewdrop notch as well. But as I said in one of the videos about the Blue Vivo 11 Plus that I did, the OnePlus 6 didn't need that wide notch because it didn't do real 3D depth sensing facial recognition. It just did the software-based one, which it can do already with the dewdrop notch. So, you know, just keep that in mind. A lot of people asked me what I was talking about. Shout out to my Project 13. He thought that it was very informative, and he got exactly what I was trying to say. Definitely my boy right there. Y'all check him out. I get a lot of inspiration from him. These phones, you know, I get the notch. It's there to fit the front-facing camera. I get that. I'm all for it. It's to fit the front-facing camera without having a slide-out mechanism that will break on you later more than, well, maybe, like the Next S. I have a Next S, and I haven't had any problems out of it. But there is a chance. I mean, we don't really know the durability of the slide-out mechanisms. You know, and of course, they're coming out with the sliders now, like the Honor Magic 2 and the Xiaomi Mi Mix 3. But if you don't want the manual slider or the automatic pop-up, and you still want the front-facing camera with the all-screen, the notch is there for a reason. It's always been there for a reason. I like the notch. But the notch doesn't have to be as wide as the iPhones if the phone doesn't even feature true depth sensing facial recognition. You know, the Zenfone 5Z didn't have it. The OnePlus 6 didn't have it. I mean, you know, there was no reason for the wide notch. The dewdrop notch, which the Essential phone had already did almost a year and a half ago, before the iPhone, you know, when it was months before the iPhones even came out at that point. That was the notch to have. That was the notch that should have always been used if the phone didn't have the 3D facial recognition. But you know, the facial recognition on this phone, as it sits, the software powered one, if you will, like the OnePluses have. It is just as fast as the OnePluses. I've always found that the OnePluses were the fastest. This is just as fast. It is amazing. And the fingerprint sensor in the rear is just as you expect. Huawei has always had one of the quickest fingerprint sensors. They always did. I mean, ever since the Nexus 6P. So, that's a given there. This phone, again, it doesn't need to be speed bind. It is light years. It is way ahead of the Snapdragon 845. It's not quite on par with the Apple A12, but Huawei is doing it. Huawei is doing it. When it comes to in-house chipsets, they're definitely better than Samsung and the Exynos's. They're usually able to run, pretty optimized comparable to an Apple product because they are in-house. Your Snapdragons, they always find their way in a million different devices, and they all run different benchmarks because it's up to the manufacturers that are putting those chipsets into their phones to optimize them. And obviously, no one optimizes them to the level that OnePlus does. I mean, OnePlus is on the level of a Pixel phone for a fraction of the price. That's why your Pixel phones, you really only buy those for the camera. But if you're looking for the best camera, Huawei has kind of held that position for almost a year now with the P20, and they're probably going to hold it again with the Mate 20. This phone is amazing. Kirin 980, 7nm chipset, octa-core. It has 4 Cortex A76s, the first to use the A76s. The Snapdragon 855, 8150, whatever they decide to call it, will also use the Snapdragon. Well, it'll also use ARM Cortex A76 chipset, the architecture, I should say. This also has 4 Cortex A55 for the energy efficiency, which the Snapdragon 855 will also use. I think the 845 uses Cortex A55s for energy efficiency as well. I think they've moved past the 853s from the Snapdragon 835. So the Cortex A55s got 4 of those for the energy efficiency, and then the other 4 processors within this phone, the Kirin 980, are the all-new Cortex A76, which have not been used yet. And this phone has a triple cluster. It uses the 4 lower efficiency Cortex A55 processors for the, obviously, to save battery, but it doesn't just use the other 4 high-power A76s for raw power. It splits those into 2 more clusters. 2 of them are lower clocked, or medium clocked, as they say, and then the other 2 are the high clock speeds. So you got those middle cores there to help with apps that don't run well with extreme efficiency, but don't exactly need raw power to run. So it is a great setup. To my knowledge, the Snapdragon 855 will be doing a triple cluster as well, I think, or a tri-cluster they call it. This 7nm processors that are starting to come out between the 855 Snapdragon, the Kirin 980, the Apple A12, the next Samsung Exynos that are coming out with it, the 9920 I think it is, or the 9020, something like that. 7nm is definitely the future. Huawei did technically come out with it first, but Apple beat it to market. But this thing is just extremely powerful. It has the Mali G76 graphics chip. It does have GPU Turbo 2.0. So, it's already like having a gaming phone. The Mate 20 is already a lot like the Mate 20X, which is marketed as a gaming phone. It just has a smaller screen. It's a 6.5 versus a 7.2. Of course, it's still an LCD to an OLED. I realize that. But this phone is just insanely powerful. I've been super impressed with it. It does have the gestures. I thought the gestures worked really well on the P20 Pro, so I wanted to use it on this phone. Hope y'all like this video. Y'all hit me up. Tell me how much y'all like it. Leave me some questions. Let me know what you think. Mate 20.